ODIs.
Hello and welcome to episode 122 of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I am your host for this week, Ashwin, and we have a full house today. DJ is in London, Varun is in Singapore, and week 2 of kind of the return to cricket. So lots to talk about. There was the second test of England-West Indies is going on as we record this. So by the time you listen, you'll know the result. You'll get to hear us discuss it before we know the result. South Africa had launched a new format of cricket, so some interesting things happening there. And then, as always, lots of good social media action keeping us busy this week. But, gents, how are you guys doing? Varun, let me start with you. It's late night for you as we record. Do you have the England-West Indies test match on in the background, or are you still in your Formula One phase that's been going on?
No, so I was just going to say, today was the Formula One race after, I think, a 2-week gap, second one since COVID has started. And because of Netflix Drive to Survive series, I've actually blocked it on my calendar. So just before switching to England-West Indies, I was watching Formula One, Lewis Hamilton won, and yeah, man, it's been great. It's been good sports-wise for us now.
I mean, pretty incredible that sports is back. DJ, you're not a big soccer or football guy, are you? Like, the fact that the English Premier League has returned, like, we set up this recording time so that we're done by the time I get to go watch the English Premier League Sunday day. But feeling good about the return to sport, or I guess more specifically the return to cricket?
Yeah, man, it's been great because the last test match finished obviously last Sunday, and then you had a 3-day break, and then you had almost a back-to-back test match, right? So enjoying that, man. It's nice to see live cricket. It's nice to have something to look forward to during the week, I think. And we really missed it, man. I think you said it was 118 days, right, last week. So it's nice to have something to look forward to, and you're going to have another test match coming up soon after this one's done. So pretty pleased with that.
It's just something we took for granted that there was live sport on, and we're now glad that it's back. So it gives us a newfound appreciation. But let's talk a little bit more about the sport. So obviously, when DJ and I recorded last week a little bit, West Indies had just won that first test match, making the next 2 in this 3-match series incredibly important. Varun, let's talk about what happened before the second test match started. So England played 3 quicks the first time around, right? A lot of discussion about not playing Stuart Broad, not playing Sam Curran, not playing Chris Woakes, etc. So they went in with Jimmy Anderson, Jofra Archer, and Mark Wood. A lot of discussion about how Archer and Wood are largely the same kind of bowler. Obviously, the result didn't go their way. Given the 3-day gap that DJ mentioned, they announced pretty much right away that Anderson and Wood would be rested from a workload standpoint, which means, all right, we're starting to debate. Archer's probably going to play. We know he has tremendous physical ability when it comes to playing back-to-back. He's played a lot of cricket. You expect Broad to kind of come in. And then the news breaks that Jofra Archer has been suspended. You want to talk to us a little bit more about what you read and kind of how you reacted?
Yeah, and it was quite funny because the news hit and they just kind of didn't give a reason why. And immediately everyone's mind just went to, oh, he's gone out partying, right? Everyone's mind
shady stuff.
Yeah, everyone's mind went there. I was getting messages from all over, people saying, why did he have to go party right now? And we didn't think, right? We didn't even think for a second whether even clubs are open. Can you go partying? Our minds went there straight. And then I think we found out that he stopped home at his house in Brighton on the way. And to me, I guess it's just disappointing, man. You heard Michael Holding talk about it a little bit. Other players, the English Cricket Board has said that it could have cost them millions, tens of millions of dollars. I think it's just a irresponsible move for a young player who is actually cemented his place in the team. Jofra Archer is probably number 1 to pick in the bowling lineup ahead of Broad and Anderson, which, I mean, I'm probably saying a controversial thing, but I see it that way, right? That he's probably in the team ahead of those 2. You're dropping one guy to accommodate Archer, and then Archer has gone and done this. So disappointing overall.
Yeah. DJ, any different point of view? Do you think he should have behaved different? Do you think it was just a slip up from like a young guy or do you think he should have known better?
I think he should have known better, obviously. It is a slip-up. There is obviously a commercial element to all of this, which the English Cricket Board raised very quickly. But, I mean, it happens. He's paying the penalty for it. Hopefully there's no harm done. And, I mean, he is the future, right? Varun obviously said that he's the number 1 pick. He is the future, one of the future stars of English cricket. And he should have known better, but I mean, you can't hold it against this guy. Although I have to say, my first reaction was not that he went partying, but that he'd snuck out for a quick liaison with someone. But clearly it wasn't. He just went home. So that's probably fair.
I was trying to use code words, but okay, DJ. Party
Yeah,
was...
DJ went straight to the point.
Mola, meri party kara de tu.
Okay, let's talk about... So, I mean, I have to say, I'm not an England fan, obviously, for those who've been listening to this podcast for a while. But if you can lose your 3 frontline quicks and end up having a pace attack of Broad, Wokes, and Curran, with obviously Stokes rounding out that fourth, that's pretty unbelievable, right? So England's bench strength with the ball is just unreal. But Varun, let's talk about that first innings. Dom Sibley comes out, makes England's 7th slowest century, makes 122 of 372 balls. England end up at 469 for 9. Talk me through that, right? In a test match that now, at the time of recording this, is the middle of day 4, we realize it looks like it seems to be heading towards a draw. Is that a match-losing knock? Was it just too slow?
This is a confusing one for me, right? Because firstly, I mean, I have to say that when he was batting and he ended up with a strike rate of 32, and I think I messaged you guys or I messaged somebody else saying he makes Pujara look like a T20 player, right? So he was batting that slowly. It is difficult to watch, right? Even as fans of the game who, DJ's going to probably talk a little bit about how everyone picked Test cricket as their favorite game out of the 3 formats. It is difficult to watch somebody bat at a strike rate of 30. Now, where this is an interesting debate for me is that I don't have the stats in front of me, but if you think about typical games of Test cricket in England, Australia, maybe South Africa, I assume a lot of those games don't go on till day 5. So when you have that situation, should you be faulting a batsman for batting slowly? Probably not. You are setting your team up. You're obviously going for a partner, which he had with Stokes. And I think England should have been pushing to make like 600 and just kind of batted West Indies out of the game. What I thought was interesting is that clearly there were messages being sent to him on the field that you got to up the run rate, you got to up your strike rate. And so even the way he got out, it just felt like the team management had told him, we're pretty much done. We've got Butler to come. We've got Curran to come. There's Chris Wokes to go. So it just felt like they were like, yeah, we're done now. You've done your job. And so it's an interesting debate for me.
DJ, do you think Root and Stokes were having the intent conversation? Does that happen in dressing rooms outside India?
Almost 100%. Because you could see the weird way he got out and it's totally uncharacteristic, right? But, I mean, it all has come to a head because we lost a whole day, remember, because of rain. We lost day 3 completely because of rain. And that's why this is looking, and that's why Varun's comment is so important, that games don't go to the 5th day. But you're now looking at a 4-day game. And I mean, it goes back to the whole debate about 4-day test matches. And if you don't account for rain and interruptions and things like that, a lot of them would end in a draw, which is what this is looking like ending in at this stage, with the West Indies about to go past the follow-on mark as we record. They're about 30 runs behind, right? So interesting that the comparisons with Pujara, and Pujara being almost a T20 player, but I think Sibley's only got 1 gear, right? And he's only started. He's got his 2nd test 100. So, I mean, he's going to work on his game for sure. But he didn't look comfortable trying to accelerate. And of course, the English media is not happy if you bat too fast or you bat too slowly. So either there's too much intent or there's no intent. And you can't keep everyone happy all the time. I think Sibley played a good test match innings. Not the most attractive to watch, but still important for his team given the stroke players they have coming later in the order.
DJ, I want to pick on that. And Varun, let me ask you, because for me, my 2 cents, and this is opinion only, I think there is space for one batsman who bats like that in a test side. I think Pujara has it for India. Each country, as you go down, probably has up to one player who bats like that. So for me, I don't hold it against Sibley. I think when you have Root, Stokes, Butler, Pope, Rory Burns, those kinds of guys in your lineup, I continue to believe, like, honestly, Burns got out relatively early. Crawley got out in the first over, second over, whatever it was. And, in the first over after point. So Burns and Crawley got out back to back, right? So all that to say, I believe there is a place in Test cricket for one guy who bats that slowly. Do you think there is, or do you have a different point of view?
No, I think there is, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if the game goes to 5 days, which is rare, you should have a provision for somebody to bat like that. Let's just bring up 2 points, right? England are 1-0 down. They're 29 for 2, 81 for 3. It's not a great position to be in. And the second point is, I don't think the English batting lineup is that strong, right? I haven't followed all these guys' careers long enough, but Rory Burns, Sibley, Crawley, Pope, these are 4 out of your top 6. So if you don't have somebody to play that anchoring role, England may have been 250 all out, 280 all out, and looking at defeat then. So it's just unfortunate that one day got rained out. But I agree with you, Ashwin. I think one person should be given the liberty to play like this. And that's why all three of us get a bit angry when Kohli and Shastri tell a Pujara to hurry up and start playing faster, because that's not his game.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So DJ, on the almost exactly on the 1 year anniversary of the, however you want to describe it, World Cup final that Ben Stokes had made sure it will be in our memory forever. Let's say that. Ben Stokes comes out, makes 176 runs. At one point, he joined Sibley pretty late, and then at one point actually overtook him in terms of number of runs. Can this man do no wrong? Like with the ball, he took critical wickets last time. He captained. Yeah, they lost, but is Ben Stokes just in the purple patch of his life?
Yeah, man. I mean, and I think it was 2 years ago when India was coming to England, right? When he was in trouble with the incident at the nightclub, and it looked like he may even be going to jail. And there was all that saluting going on with Marlon Samuels, and he'd bowled that last over in the World T20, and that Brathwaite had hit him away for, and he'd smashed his hand into the dressing room locker in Australia, and so got left out of game. And for him to have turned all of that around, I mean, I think I've gone on record on this podcast before and said I just don't like the guy. But oh my God, what a difference 2 years has made. And I think he's won us all over, man. Like, just by simply performing on the field, by channeling all that aggression and will to win and spirit into his cricket, and 176. And as you said, he went past Sibley, but at one point he came into bat at 3 down. Sibley was opening the batting and he was about to beat him to 100, right? They were like 98 and 95 respectively. So, and then he switched gears, and you could see how he switched gears, because that's the difference between someone like him and a Sibley. Remember in the Ashes, that innings that he played, that famous innings at Headingley, he was on like 3 out of I don't know, 60 odd balls the first day that he came into bat. So he has that ability to move through the gears, which Sibley didn't have. And it was almost stark watching that, right? But whenever Stokes is on the field, things happen. He takes catches, he takes wickets, he scores runs. And I mean, you can see he leads the team, and just an incredible cricketer. And I think we're quite privileged actually to have watched his turnaround so closely, having followed him through those years.
Yeah, and DJ, actually, he said that he never thought that he could face 300 balls in a test match. I think he was shocked at that. To put it in perspective, that's like batting all 50 overs of an ODI game, right? So I think he was mighty pleased with that.
Yeah, he definitely said I was more surprised and excited by the ability to bat 300 balls than I was by the century itself. So, Varun, let me quickly ask you to close out this topic in the test match situation, right? So at the time of recording this, West Indies trailed by 227. It's sort of partway through the third session on the fourth day. So call it 3.5 sessions to go, which is 110-ish overs. What are your prediction on some of the permutations, and what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, so I think it's going to end up in a draw. That's what I'm going to say. DJ?
West Indies have just lost their 5th wicket.
Yeah,
on my screen.
As you were speaking, I saw Broad bowl that LBW, and he didn't even turn around.
He did the celebratory.
He just did the celebration.
So yeah, man, I think they're going to avert the follow on, and then I think England have actually.
So let me ask you, what does he do? What does Root do tactically if they get past the follow on point? So let's say West Indies get all out trailing by 195. What does Root do?
I think Root has got to go out. He's got to score.
Does he send
130?
Does he open with Dimley?
Dimley? Who's Dimley?
What's his name? Sibley. Oh yeah.
Just call him Dimley.
No, I'll tell you why. Because I was messaging Rohan about it, and I called him Dibbly Dobbly.
Dibbly Dobbly Sibley.
That's a pretty good name.
So I think he's got to go out and score 150 runs, set a target of 340 on the last day, and back himself and his bowlers to bowl the West Indies out in 2.5 sessions, maybe. But that assumes that they're going to actually bowl the West Indies out now.
I mean, even they're 5 down with half a session to go. There's no way they're getting 5 wickets and making, call it 90 to 100 runs within the third session, right? So I think he's going to have the choice to go out and bat and make maybe 60 to 80 runs and then go for the win. Or because, reminder, the West Indies is up 1-0 in the 3-match series, and they currently hold the title. So if England wins if England draws this match, the best they can do is tie the series or draw the series, which means they don't get to take the title home, right? So anyway.
Exactly. So I think they've got to just go for broke. What's the point of it? Doesn't matter whether you lose 2-1 or 3-0 if you're going to lose the trophy, right? So may as well go for broke. Root has been a positive captain. Remember when Hope scored that 100 with Brathwaite? Root actually declared a 322, right? So it has happened in the past. They have set a target around 320. It's backfired and they've moved on from there. So I think they've got to go for broke, right?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the objective. But worth noting, like Dowrich and Holder still to come in, Chase and Blackwood at the crease. Blackwood, of course, the almost centurion, made 95 in the previous game. So, West Indies could absolutely bet their way into a draw and retaining the series here. So, DJ, let me quickly ask you again. You posted a couple of tweets that stirred up some controversy on Twitter about the non-striker backing up. And it feels like we talk about Munkading every other episode on the show. Somehow you guys talked with Monty as well. But talk to me about that. What was going on and why did it upset you so much?
Yeah, so it started actually with a review where, they check the no ball, right? Before they go through the whole process, they check the no ball. And I noticed that while they were checking the no ball, Dom Sibley was at least a foot or even a foot and a half down the track with no intention of grounding his bat or his body behind the line. And so I tweeted out saying, can Sky Cricket rerun some of that footage? They didn't actually do that. But in the same over, there was a no ball, which was referred to the third umpire. It wasn't actually referred to it was called. And then they showed a replay of that. And then that's the screenshot I took on my phone of that no ball with Dom Sibley is not even got his bat behind. He's got his bat in his hand, in the crook of his arm almost. And there's no way he's even bothered to put his bat down at that stage, which I just found amazing. And there was this whole talk about, you should not do this. It's against the spirit of the game. But what are you teaching your young cricketers? And the next screenshot in the same thread had Stokes showing the perfect technique of backing up while there was a review for Butler. And they were checking the no ball again. And I wanted to check that. That's what I was waiting to see. And Stokes had his bat well behind the crease. There was no issue at all. Right. So at the exact same stage that the ball was delivered. And so there was this whole thing about, it's against the spirit of the game and all of that. But guys, you need to teach your young cricketers how to back up properly. If you want to take a start from behind the popping crease almost. Dom Sibley is going to get Munkaded at some point in his career. If he has a successful career, he needs to work on that genuinely. And that's when I tweeted out saying, this is why Ravi Ashwin is the hero that cricket needs, with that screenshot. And that stirred up a few emotions, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think well said. And, for anybody who's listened to us since the beginning or since even halfway through, we are all pretty much pro Munkad in this on this podcast. So it's interesting. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, I feel like there are always so many rules made for batsmen that this should just needn't be another one that with the spirit of cricket, you just decide to give them. DJ?
And just to add to that, the funny thing about the no ball screenshot, right? Like its holder is over by a couple of inches, but Dom Sibley is just wandering out of his ground like he's ahead of the bowler without his bat in the crease. You're just like, you're penalizing a bowler for that much of a margin, and you're not even looking at the batsman, and you're not saying anything. So I'm sure teams all over the world are going to look at this, and I'm not saying personally in the club cricket I play I would ever monk at anyone because I'm not a professional cricketer. This is not my job. But if it is your job, make sure you're behind the line because you're going to give up your wicket and within the rules, right? So, I think there's a difference between like club cricket or gully cricket or whatever and professional cricket because you're doing that as your job. You make sure you take whatever advantages you can get, but make sure you don't give away other people an advantage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. So let's pivot a little bit, Varun. We're going to talk about a brand new format of cricket in the second half. But before that, I want to talk to you a little bit about a tweet that we put out about which is your favorite format, right? We got a lot of responses. And obviously between T20s, ODIs, and tests, 70% of people voted for test matches as their favorite format. 17% voted for T20s in second place and 13% for ODIs. So all the disclaimers about the fact that people who follow us on Twitter are probably more hardcore fans of the game and all that aside, did that surprise you? 70% test and then T20s coming ahead of ODIs in second place?
So I think the margin of tests surprised me. I personally voted for T20 and DJ's poll. But I think I was surprised by how much. So let me put it this way. I knew test would win. I knew T20 would come second and I knew ODI would come third. But the two things that surprised me were how how low ODI got, and it just shows how relevant that is today. Especially, we've talked about it. World Cups might be fun, but bilateral ODI series are just nonsense. The second thing is tests for 70%, right? They often say that only the purists like tests, and I think we don't have a bias on our show, right? I think generally people who like all three formats do listen to us and kind of respond to our tweets. So for tests to come out that high is absolutely fantastic. Now, I don't know if there's a little bit of recency bias. Test match cricket is the only thing that's on right now. People are enjoying it so much. England, West Indies is going on. But still, the margin was huge.
Yeah, it's worth noting we did a good point at the end, right? We did post it, I think, a couple of days before the first test match. So there was just so much anticipation for the England-West Indies test. But I hear you. DJ, what do you think about kind of the ODI T20 relationship in particular, and the fact that the ODI World Cup is still the coveted trophy in the sport? But is that going to go away?
It's an interesting one because I don't think I actually voted in the poll, but I would have probably gone for Test cricket because it's something I enjoy. But I enjoy all three formats, right? And it's hard to pit them against one another. But if there is an ODI tournament with context, I would pick that over an acontextual test match. And I would do the same with an T20. Like in a year leading up to a T20 World Cup, there's context to it. But just playing meaningless bilateral India-Sri Lanka ODIs, right? Like no one watches that, like 7-match series of India-Sri Lanka. You may watch the first one, but then, I mean, other than us, who watches those games, man? It's all about context. And with the ODI, I think that will remain. I think there will be fewer, and I hope there will be fewer and fewer ODIs that are just bilateral games. I think the Champions Trophy and the World Cup should remain the preeminent tournaments. The T20 World Cups, which are now World Cups, which were earlier just the World T20s, will have their place. Test cricket obviously tests all sorts of different things, right? It tests character. It allows you to come back. People say it mirrors life because you could fail at one innings and then make a huge comeback in the second inning. You could have great first innings and have a really bad second innings. You could win a game after following on. So there's a lot more intricacy to Test cricket. But I think to the extent that a game has context, I think format for me is almost irrelevant. But that's the challenge cricket faces, actually providing context to each game.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Varun, let me ask you, so context is important, obviously, making sure you get enough eyeballs. And so let's talk quickly the business side of tests, right? Like there are fans, there are the three of us sitting here, there are fans who are really intense about the game, but we know that T20 kicked off because you need a much bigger audience to be able to monetize, to be able to justify it, right? So do you think, and by the way, we probably will have a newfound value for the calendar and the days available because we've lost so much time with COVID, right? So arguably the first thing to go will be the meaningless bilateral ODI series. But do you think Test cricket has the longevity to survive in a world where you need new fans consistently coming in the game? Or will it just be the traditionalist version while T20 plays the role to bring new fans in?
Yeah, so I think it's going to play the traditionalist role. I don't think Test cricket is necessarily going to be the tool to increase viewership in new countries or deepen the penetration within existing countries. So I think T20 is going to do that. But I mean, I often think about it sometimes, we're in the corporate world. And again, this is a corporate tip by Varun Garg. But sometimes you take a loss on one particular product, right, for longevity to keep it going. And you use your kind of cash cow product to fund that, the one with higher margin. So I feel like T20 is a way to bring in the money, keep the traditionalists happy, keep Test cricket going, build skill, build character within the game. But it's almost like you're running two different products. And Ashwin, I guess, you've done brand management. It's like becoming brand manager for Test cricket versus brand manager for T20. The objectives and KPIs for both would be very different.
Man, if I could become brand manager for Test cricket for the ICC, that would be a dream job for me. But there you have it, folks. Essentially, corporate tips by Varun Garg. He said Test cricket is milk in the grocery store, which is subsidized and you lose money on it. But there you have it. DJ's showing us a screenshot from a Cricinfo article where it says Test cricket. What does it say? The Big Bash is going to prop up Test cricket, or the opposite? Test cricket to prop up launch of the 10th edition of the Big Bash. Interesting.
It's actually the opposite, which is very interesting, right? Yeah.
Anyway, with that, we are going to talk a little bit about a brand new format, but we will take a quick break and we will be right back at the second half of this show.
Hey everybody, welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you haven't been following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money and Intel. Their support is much appreciated. Before I tell you about some of the shows that we have for you this week, I really wanted to kind of really point out the incredible efforts of our host and our team. We've been able to maintain most of our production schedule in this lockdown, which is going into 4 months now. And I couldn't be happier with the fact that our hosts and team have been able to kind of just get all of this stuff out so incredibly well. So I just really wanted to kind of call them out for that and thank them for their support in this time. And since I spent so much time talking about that, and I want to get you out of here quickly, let me give you a quick update on a few shows that you should check out this week. On Siders, we had Amish Tripathi, really interesting discussion. Both of them dive deep into history. Monty Panesar was on Edges and Sledges, another really cool show. On Advertising is Dead, Tanmay Bhatt showed up. That was a cool episode. Malini Agarwal, also probably better known as Miss Malini, showed up on Absolutely Right. It's just been an absolutely gangbusters week in terms of like the kind of guests we've had and the conversations we've had on the network. Please do check some stuff out. And with that, let's get you back to your show.
Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. DJ, you and I watched this a little bit. Varun, I don't think watched it, said before we started recording he doesn't even exactly understand how it works. But to be honest, I didn't hear any of the hype about it. And obviously, if you haven't figured out yet, I'm talking about this thing called 3T Cricket, or 3TC it was called, the Solidarity Cup. It was a charity tournament taking place in South Africa where a cricket match was being played with 3 teams, and all 3 teams playing the same match with the objective or the outcome being a ranking. So there was a podium at the end. One team placed in gold position, one placed silver, and one placed in bronze. So DJ, do you want to try to quickly explain to both Varun and our listeners what was going on?
I'm not sure I can get it right, man. To be totally honest, this is like if the 100 was invented to simplify cricket and bring new fans, this was like even the existing fans are going to find this format of cricket really hard to understand. But I'm going to have a go at it, man. I mean, it was 3 teams, as you said. There was a podium finish and all of that stuff, right? Obviously, I had the big names. Unfortunately, Rabada had to drop out. He had a death in the family, but there was Quinton de Kock and there was A.B. de Villiers, the big names from the South African side, and it was for charity. But it was effectively, as I understood it, you batted 6 overs against one team and then another team bowled 6 overs at you. So you had a 12-over innings. Then the next team did that, and then the next team did that. But then you then batted... Sorry, you did your first 6 overs. Then Correct. The other team batted.
So team A batted 6, B batted 6, C batted 6, and then you batted 6 again. So it was 2.
Correct, against the other team's bowling attack that they hadn't batted against previously. And then you added up the scores. And if the batsman was out in the first round, you would have... they wouldn't get a bat again, right? So you just continued your innings from where you left off. Now, it sounds like somebody who has played a lot of gully cricket basically came up with the rules. It sounds quite convoluted and something that would fit straight into like a colony idea of test match cricket in the limited time that you have with fewer players and everybody's got to play. And basically it was convoluted, but I enjoyed it. And of course, A.B. de Villiers was there. He scored 61 of 24. He absolutely took apart this guy called John Smarts. And I think we've spoken about this guy's name before because it's just such a great name. And he took him apart in 1 over. I think it was the first over of the second innings of the Eagles innings. He was leading the Eagles, right? And yeah, it is confusing. They're basically effectively 6 innings, right? Each team bats twice against the other team's bowlers. So interesting concept. Good to see cricket coming back to South Africa. Everybody seemed to be enjoying themselves. De Villiers, man, that guy still got it, dude. It would be a foolish move for him not to come back.
So, Varun, did you get that all? Can you quickly summarize for our listeners?
Yeah, I was reading the rules as DJ was talking, but I got it now.
What did I get wrong? So, I must have got something wrong for sure.
No, I don't think you got anything wrong. I think the couple of things you didn't mention. One is across the 2 innings, and remember, you're bowling to different teams each time, right? Each half, because A bowls to B bowls to C bowls to A. That's kind of how that rotation works. So you can bowl each bowler can bowl a maximum of 3 overs. There's only 8 players in a team, right? So think about what that does to your, and again, they were managing trying to do a tournament in COVID times and stuff. But think about what that does. 8 players in a team. So do you have 4 batsmen, 4 bowlers? Do all-rounders come at even more of a premium in this format? When you have to bowl a total of 12 overs and 3 each, so you need 4 people to bowl 3 overs each, right? So Anyway, all that to say, how do you also think about, like, if I have 3 overs and I bowl 2 to team A and 1 to team B, like, do you preserve your bowler like for the batting lineup that's to come, etc.? So DJ, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I was just going to say they missed one trip because they had last man stands, but what they missed was one tip, one hand. Genuinely, we should really get in there with 3D cricket and get our gully cricket rule in there, because that would make it so much more awesome. Only eight fielders, eight players, right? So one tip, one hand, I think should be allowed, and that would be my suggestion for that game.
I agree. If anybody from Cricket South Africa is listening to this, please try to incorporate one tip, one hand. We would happily come on and be partners. Obviously, that being our social media handle. But Varun, let me ask you. So, notwithstanding the fact that you didn't watch it, let's say it did reasonably well commercially. Like, what is your thought or reaction to the idea that a board is trying out something new, unique, different like this?
I think it's good to try it, because if you don't try it, T20 cricket wouldn't have started, and T20 consumes a lot of our life today. But I think like anything, you got to make it simple. You got to understand if there's a real need for it, and if there isn't, and you're just innovating for the sake of that, I think it's going to fail.
DJ, agree, disagree? Different point of view?
I think this was a bit of fun, man. Although it did bring up the interesting thing that Sachin had brought out years ago, saying let's convert ODIs into 2 innings games with 25 overs each, right? So it did bring back a little bit of memory. I don't think this is going to stay. This is like the double wicket tournament, right? It's a little bit of fun. It's for charity, and I don't think it's going to stick around. Maybe like the Hong Kong sixes or something like that. A novelty factor.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think it's partly novelty, partly, like you said, for a good cause charity. So for me, like the reason the 100 got so much opposition is because they launched it in a way where they said, we want to create the 4th new format and make it a big thing. The T10s, the Hong Kong sixes, if you're having fun, I think it's great to keep it fresh, keep players on their toes. It's something interesting to be said for if you have 28 to 30 good players, instead of having 8 of them sit on the sidelines, you now have a way to incorporate, to split them up into 3 teams and do it, whether it's at a fun kind of school level or more recreationally. So I thought it was fun. I'm happy to see innovation continuing to happen in the sport. But DJ, I think what summarized it best for me is the way you said it. Is format could be whatever. We could be playing anywhere. AB de Villiers is going to come and hit him out of the park. 61 of 24 and took his team to a pretty massive victory in the gold position. All right. Varun, I know it's getting late for you. Before we kind of wrap up, a couple things going on in social media and in the news today that I want to talk about. The first is we got a question on social media, which was essentially if you had to pick one player to help bring the game of cricket to the US, the massive America market, which is not just a lot of eyeballs, but also a lot of dollars, who would it be and why? So what is your thought or reaction to that question?
Yes, that's a great question. I mean, I think I would say Ben Stokes, honestly, because he can bat, he can bowl, he can catch, right? So if there's one guy you have to try to use to bring cricket to the US, I would say Ben Stokes.
Yeah, and actually, it was interesting because Ben, who tweeted us the question, also Ben, had the same guess. DJ, do you agree, disagree?
I thought you were going to say Ben.
Said Kohli.
I thought you were going to say Ben Stokes tweeted us the question. I was like, what?
That would have been awesome, right? It would have been nice if Ben Stokes is tweeting at us. So, DJ?
I think Ben Stokes is a good call. Obviously, Virat Kohli is up there, man. He's a great player. He's great drama on the field, man. He's in everyone's face. He's obviously one of the greatest batsmen on the planet at the moment. But I don't know. I mean, you've got to be box office, right? And Ashwin, I think you probably got the right guy with box office. I'm going to let you have the thunder on declaring who you think is going to take the American market, given you're the only one who lives there out of the 3 of us. So you know the market best.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. So without suspense, my ideal candidate to do this was the universe boss, had to be Chris Gayle. And there's a couple of reasons, right? Like, I do think if you're launching in a new market, Test cricket could potentially eventually have a home. The truth is, if you don't grow up around Test cricket and appreciate all the subtlety and nuance, it is very, very difficult to get into. I mean, every conversation I have with my colleagues here who even mean well, but who know about my podcast or about this podcast is always like mocking or jokingly about, oh, the match started yesterday, it'll be done by next week, right? And it's just something that's different to what this market is used to. By the way, when Major League Soccer launched here, one of the big negatives for them was that the matches end in draws. Like, what do you mean a match ends in a draw? Right? A regular season baseball game, if it's tied at the end of 9 innings, goes to extra time because they don't, you want to have a winner. You want to drive competitiveness, etc. So I think you need something that can compete with baseball, basketball, the NFL, and all these things. And so to me, it needs to be a Chris Gale type of character. Yeah, the big hitting sixes is just one part of the game we all love so much, but it's an important part to try to launch it to a new market. So I don't know how or whether it'll happen. They've already started playing a few games a year with the West Indies in Florida. India played the West Indies last year down in Florida. So I hope personally, selfishly, it spreads here.
And maybe even Andre Russell, right? Because he's a bowler and an excellent fielder. So going with the all-rounder theme that Ben Rajadurai, not Ben Stokes, who tweeted in, I think Andre Russell could be one. And we had a very interesting discussion actually on that tweet where one of the listeners was like, completely disagree. You need to get Kohli. Kohli's beautiful to watch and all of that. And the other listener was saying, no, you need somebody. The Americans like big hitters. So very, very interesting discussion on that front, I thought.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to trivialize and say, oh, you want just the big hitters and the home runs. And the truth is there is nuance and a role in, say, a big game like baseball for the guy who's, got the best technique and is playing a unique role in the team, not just the massive the home run hitter. I just think it's hard to introduce a new sport with the beauty of a cover drive, right? For you to appreciate the stability of the head, the foot position, getting to the pitch of the ball and leaning your weight in and driving it to the boundary takes more time. Where it's easier to enjoy a game like a T20 where there's more wickets and sixes. That's all.
Yeah, and which is what I think the listener's point was, that you introduce them with the Chris Gales and the Andre Russells, get the viewer and listener hooked, and then show them the beauty of the Kohli cover drive or the flick or the leg glance, right? So it was a more nuanced argument than I had actually put forward. So I probably needed to clarify that.
All right, it's late, Varun. It's past midnight for you, but I cannot let us wrap this up without one more topic, which is the recent announcement, I guess not announcement, the rumors that have been coming out about our favorite format tournament, which is, of course, the Indian Premier League. And the discussion now that they are just waiting for the official announcement of a postponement of the T20 World Cup and slotting in the IPL in the September to November window, sometime in that window in the UAE. Thoughts, reactions? Do you think this is real? Do you think this is just the rumor mills at work? What's going on here? DJ is already excited about it.
I think, let me just put it this way. I think it's going to happen. And I think I'm usually someone who takes the positive in everything. You know what the best thing about COVID-19 is going to be? Is that we're going to have 2 IPLs within 6 months. That is the best thing about COVID-19.
So you think it's going to happen? UAE, all 8 teams, it's going to be the full IPL? Is that what you think is the plan?
Yeah, I think there'll be a version of it. I think you'll have less venues, you'll have more games in the day. Let's see, if people are working from home, why not start at 9 a.m. and finish by 6 p.m.? But
is that a self-implication about your quote-unquote working from home?
No, man, it's just the UAE timings have to work for Singapore. That's the biggest thing for me. But I think they'll probably squeeze more matches in a day. They'll have less venues, and they just got to figure out that whatever the bubble they're going to keep, right? That's it. But otherwise, I think the BCCI has been working on it long enough, so they're literally just waiting for the T20 World Cup to be postponed. And yeah, man, if somehow the T20 World Cup gets postponed to mid-May next year, you're going to have 2 IPLs and a World Cup in a 6-8 month period. So that's a lot to look forward to.
A lot to look forward to as fans. We're less concerned about player workload and stuff. They'll figure all that out for us. We want to be able to watch phenomenal cricket. Warren's on mute saying things that I can't repeat because we're a family-friendly show. But DJ, let me quickly wrap up with just asking you, if you personally had to pick T20 World Cup over IPL from a priority standpoint, as a fan, as a podcaster, as an Indian cricket supporter, which one would you like to see if you could only have one this calendar year?
I'd like to watch the Indian team play the World T20, man, and win the World T20.
You said the Indian, and I just assumed you were going to say Indian Premier League. That's interesting.
No, I mean, the argument is India will always win the IPL, right? I want to see India win the World Cup again.
But DJ, we've got tickets booked for the Australia T20 World Cup. So it's best that it gets postponed to when spectators can come back so that we 3 of us can go and watch it live.
Yeah, man, imagine. And if any sponsors out there willing to sponsor our flights there, please get in touch. Contact at onetip1hand.com. Nice.
There you have it. That is as easy and as good a note as ever to end this show with a plug for anybody willing to sponsor our travel to go watch some cricket. But thank you for tuning in. Thanks for listening. As always, we love engaging with you guys, especially during these times when most people are sitting at home. Contact at onetiponehand.com is the email address. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at onetiponehand. We love hearing from you guys. Thank you for being the incredible listeners and supporters we have. It makes us excited to come back and put on the show. Tell everybody you know, help spread the word. And we'll be back next week with another interesting episode. At the time of recording, this West Indies has just lost their 7th wicket. So we'll see how our predictions go. That's the joy of recording on a Sunday, but not releasing till a Monday evening where, you guys will know more than we do by the time of listening. So you're either marveling in how spot on we were or laughing at us for being so wrong. But thank you for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you guys all in a week's time.
Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Don Bradman, and now Cyrus Brocha. Okay, probably not in the right company. I mean, Don Bradman is Australian. But it's called Cyrus Says, a wonderful show about everything. Find the show on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
रिश्ते में तो हम तुम्हारे पॉडकास्ट लगते हैं. नाम है फुटबॉल शुटबॉल.
Presenting Football Should Ball, a show about 3 friends discussing our favorite game over a beer. Sometimes 3, maybe even 5. Hi, I'm Shiva, and with me are my 2 sidekicks, Gaurav Sapre and Karthik Iyer.
Sidekick? You mean like Batman's Robin or Van Persie Robin?
No, I mean like Alexis Sanchez, but with a little more skill than just playing the piano.
Ha! Just shows how the best players at Arsenal are mere bench warmers at United.
Oh, thank you, Iyer. But you're a Fulham supporter, so whenever you say anything to support me, I question my beliefs.
Just like how Griezmann would say, एक बार मैंने जो decision ले लिया, तो मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता.
Banter aside, we will talk match reports, transfer rumors, top controversies, fantasy football picks, and so much more. So grab a beer and tune in to Football Should Ball every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.